already did it. It works. I already did. It works. Yeah. Nice.
Does this sound high enough when CG is speaking to you? Or not?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thanks. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, please, because our opening ceremony is about to begin. We have got a great afternoon of celebration and debate ahead of us. A couple of practical notes. We have simultaneous interpretation, so please use your headsets if you need them. And we've got captioning, thanks to Caption First for that. And this event is being webcast around the world, so you can add your voice to our Twitter feed. That's hashtag ITU150. Now, we'll just give you a couple more minutes to take your seats, but if you could hurry into them, because we've got a packed program ahead, and we don't want to rush some of the interesting debates that we're all looking forward to. If you could take your seats, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming ITU Secretary General Zhao and Minister Leuthard of Switzerland. They're coming. And here they are. Secretary General Hu Jintao and Minister Doris Leuthard of Switzerland, welcome to Geneva, to the ITU. Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to our celebration of ITU's 150th anniversary. 150 years, I think we can fairly say, at the forefront, the cutting edge of communication technology. And what's more, for almost 70 years, ITU has guided the growth and development of telecommunication as the specialized agency of the United Nations, its oldest member, driving forward innovation in ICTs, together, of course, with the UN's 193 member states, and a membership, couldn't do without them, of more than 700 private sector bodies, from business to academia. We're honoured to have as our special guest today, Doris Leuthard, Switzerland's Minister of Environment, Transport, Energy, and of course, Communications. But first, a few words of welcome from our own ITU Secretary General, Mr. Hu Jintao. You have the floor, Mr. Zhao.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome to this celebration of ITU's 150th anniversary. On behalf of ITU elected officials and myself, I want to express my heartfelt appreciation to our member states, represented here by honorable ministers, ambassadors, councillors, or head of the delegations of ITU Council, high-level government officials, private sector representatives, heads of UN agencies, Swiss Federal Authority, and Geneva Cantonal authorities, and other dignitaries present here. I also warmly welcome and recognize the presence of our current and former ITU elected officials. It has been quite a journey. On the morning of 17th May, 1865, after 2.5 months of arduous negotiations, the first International Telegraph Convention was signed in Paris, bringing into existence the International Telegraph Union, the first incarnation of ITU. In 1932, in Madrid, at the 5th conference of the Plenary Potential Conferences, ITU's founding charter was signed, changing the name from the International Telegraph Union to the International Telecommunication Union. And on 15 November 1947, in recognition of the central role that ITU has played in the development of this vital resource over almost 100 years, and its increasing importance to governments and industry, ITU became the specialized agency of the United Nations for telecommunications. Dear friends, telecommunication and information and communication technology, ICT, have evolved over these 150 years, from the telegraph to the telephone, from television to satellite, from mobile to the internet and broadband. And the ITU has adopted itself such that it has been recognized as one of the world's most resilient organizations, according to Booz Allen, having continuously reformed itself to best meet the needs of this continuous and rapidly evolving industry. The increasing pace of change is illustrated by the fact that it took 125 years to reach the first billion fixed telephone lines, but it took only 11 years to reach the first billion mobile phone subscriptions. Today, there are almost as many mobile cellular subscriptions worldwide as there are inhabitants on the planet, and more than 3 billion people are online. In today's world, where we talk about the big data, cloud computing, and Internet of Everything, and where we expect to be connected everywhere and at all times, it is incredible how much progress has been made. Look further. We are proud of the huge contributions telecom, ICT, has brought to our human society to change our economy, our culture, and our life. So today is not only just a celebration of ITU's 150th anniversary, but a celebration of today's telecommunication ICT ecosystem, surely the greatest engineering feat in human history. ITU has played its part through the coordination of global resources, including spectrum and satellite orbital resources, through its international standards and the development of an enabling environment and encouragement of innovation. One of ITU's success has been driven by the diversity of its membership, particularly our private sector members. Interestingly, the importance of private sector members was recognized in ITU from the very start, to the extent that until ITU became an UN agency, they could even accede to the ITU Convention. Today, over 700 ICT companies drive the work of ITU, together with our 193 governments, and increasingly our new academia members. ITU is also grateful to the generations of experts individuals worldwide. Today, ITU is very pleased to award Mr. Bill Gates for his unique and fantastic contribution to our information society. And we will also be awarding 5 distinguished experts for their extraordinary contribution to this ecosystem. Dear friends and colleagues, we have achieved a lot, but we cannot afford to rest on our laurels. We still have many goals to achieve, including facilitating new technology of telecom and ICT and innovations, bringing the benefits of broadband to more than the 4 billion people who are still offline, ensuring that everyone, and especially the most vulnerable segments of society, including our children, can enjoy the internet with the full confidence and trust. Bridging the digital gender gap, especially in developing countries, by empowering women through ICTs and ensuring that 1 billion people living with disabilities also share in the benefits of ICTs. In today's complex world, these goals can no longer be achieved by any single organization. ITU will work with many different organizations and industry sectors that even historically had not involvement in ITU. ICTs are pervasive and are fundamental to all sustainable socio-economic development. We can only succeed if we work together, all of us, all stakeholders. I have no doubt about ITU's continuing ability to evolve and adapt itself to meet the future challenges. I believe ITU will have a brilliant future in the next 150 years. And this confidence, I believe, is shared across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not only celebrating this day here in Geneva. Over 100 national celebrations are being organized all over the world, including conferences, workshops, competitions, postage stamps celebrating a century and a half of ITU are being issued in more than 25 countries. And during the recent days, I received many messages on the ITU 150th anniversary, and among which, yesterday, I also got his message from His Excellency, Mr. John Kerry, Secretary of State of the United States, and he even published his message as a press statement. I sincerely thank him and thank all friends who shared with us their congratulations to our 150th anniversary. I would like to thank our ITU 150 partners whose support has been invaluable in bringing these celebrations to fruition, and everyone who is with us here today, especially our founding members, our long-standing industry members, one going back to 1871. I would like to thank and congratulate all ITU staff from those early days to our current staff for their dedication to the organization. We are very proud of you, and I believe you are very proud of ITU too. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite you to join me in wishing ITU happy 150th birthday. So let me repeat again, to join me to wish ITU happy 150th birthday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhao. Of course, we couldn't let this 150th birthday day go by without hearing also from the United Nations Secretary General himself. Unfortunately, he can't be with us personally, but he has sent us a message. So let's hear a few words from Ban Ki-moon.
Congratulations on the 150th anniversary of the International Telecommunication Union. ITU has earned its global reputation for resilience and relevance. I applaud the agency's many contributions as the oldest member in the United Nations system. Telecommunications, as well as information and communications technology, drive innovation. The digital revolution has transformed our world. We communicate more easily than ever before. But we need to be more than connected. We need to be united. That is why the United Nations is mobilizing the world to forge a bold new agenda for sustainable development. ICTs can help to achieve its goal of a life of dignity for all. New information and communications technology can help boost the economy and protect the environment. This is a milestone year, the 150th anniversary of ITU, the 70th anniversary of the United Nations, and the potential starting year for transforming our world. Let us work together to harness the power of technology for our common future. Thank you.
Well, thank you to our Secretary General for that. Now, as many of you already know, Switzerland has been the home of the ITU since the Telegraph Union moved to Bern from Paris and then to Geneva in 1948 to join our UN family here. So what could be more appropriate than to have our keynote address from Switzerland's own Minister of Communication, one of her many responsibilities, of course, in the Swiss government, the others being environment, transport and energy. Miss Leuthard, es freut uns sehr, dass Sie da sind und Sie haben das Wort.
Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Mesdames et Messieurs les hauts représentants, Monsieur le secrétaire général, Monsieur le secrétaire général adjoint, Monsieur le Président du Conseil d'État, Monsieur le maire de la ville de Genève, Mesdames, Messieurs les directeurs des secteurs, Mesdames et Messieurs les délégués, Mesdames, Messieurs. C'est un grand honneur pour moi de pouvoir m'adresser à vous en tant que représentante de l'État hôte de l'Union internationale des télécommunications. Mon pays est heureux, mais aussi fier de voir votre organisation célébrer cette année son 150e anniversaire. Et comme je peux en juger, votre organisation est en pleine forme. C'est peut-être lié à la présence en Suisse. Plus sérieusement, mesdames, messieurs, il faut rappeler ici que votre organisation est la plus ancienne organisation intergouvernementale technique de coordination. À titre de comparaison, les Nations Unies célèbrent leur 7e anniversaire cette année. Les 150 ans de l'UIT, c'est d'abord un success story. 150 ans au service de la société pour lui faire bénéficier du développement des technologies en matière de télécommunications. Car en 150 ans, innovation et nouveautés spectaculaires se sont succédées sans interruption. Et ce n'est pas fini. Nous avons assisté à une progression fulgurante de nouvelles technologies. Elles ont permis, grâce à la révolution numérique qui a suivi la révolution industrielle, de mondialiser notre économie. L'accès au savoir s'est démultiplié et s'est démocratisé. Quel chemin parcouru depuis l'invention de l'imprimeur Gutenberg au XVe siècle. Et n'oublions pas le rôle de catalyseur que jouent les télécommunications dans le développement des infrastructures, dans le domaine de l'énergie, des transports et la gestion de nos ressources. Quelle évolution aussi depuis la télégraphie sans fil, qui fut la première tâche de l'Union, jusqu'aux technologies de l'information et de la communication, les fameux TIC, de la société de l'information. Des changements de technologie inouïs reflétés immédiatement par des changements de comportement dans la vie de tout un chacun. Aujourd'hui, les big data ouvrent d'énormes perspectives dans de très nombreux secteurs de la vie économique, politique et scientifique. De notre côté, ces développements doivent être encadrés pour ne pas transformer notre société en Big Brother. Même chose pour le cloud computing. Les avantages sont indéniables en permettant, par exemple, d'effectuer des économies grâce à la mutualisation des services sur un grand nombre de clients. Mais les défis ne manquent pas si l'on pense à la perte de la maîtrise des données ou aux garanties quant à l'utilisation de ces mêmes données. Nous avons enregistré l'apparition des services multimédia, l'accroissement des communications mobiles, l'arrivée des réseaux intelligents, les applications variées et diverses des programmes sur l'Internet. Tout cela répond et correspond à une demande d'un marché qui en veut toujours plus. Le résultat est là. La concurrence est stimulée et il faut se réjouir de l'importance que revêt la participation du secteur privé au sein de l'UIT. Ces dernières années, une prise de conscience générale s'est faite sur la situation écologique. Notre planète ne dispose pas de ressources illimitées. Dans cette optique, l'UIT s'est engagée elle aussi et fortement dans des programmes liés au développement durable. Pour assurer les échanges d'idées et d'informations sans considération de frontières, comme le prévoit d'ailleurs la Déclaration des droits de l'homme, en consacrant le principe de la liberté d'expression, l'UIT s'emploie à sécuriser les réseaux, à les rendre fiables. Vaste programme. Des événements récents, tragiques, démontrent hélas la nécessité de le faire et de poursuivre ses efforts dans ce domaine. Ladies and gentlemen, less than half the planet's population is connected to the Internet. This situation should be rectified as soon as possible because global communications are now crucial to our health, to our well-being, to our peace, and to prosperity. Everyone on Earth, wherever they are and whatever facilities they have at their disposal, should be connected. Accordingly, the ITU's agenda must be to continue to support developing countries and to continue to combat the digital divide in collaboration with all relevant stakeholders from both the public and the private sector. In more general terms, our aspiration remains that the ITU should continue its facilitator role in expanding the information. The ITU is a model of international cooperation. It was founded at the initiative of the French government in Paris in 1865, just 20 years after the invention of the electric telegraph and 15 years before the invention of the radio and still 30 years before radio. International cooperation was a stated objective from the outset for the Union Télégraphique Internationale, as it was then called. However, success for the Union was not a foregone conclusion. We believe that several prerequisites must be fulfilled in order for the large-scale infrastructure of an organization such as the ITU to succeed in the long term, in order to improve the rational use of information and communication infrastructures. Here are just three of these prerequisites. Firstly, I think of adequate structures. The ITU's headquarters in Geneva are built on solid and reliable structures, guaranteeing its success. Over the years, the ITU has always maintained the process of self-review, thereby preserving its vitality and originality. We believe that this will be the case in the future. A further sign of its quality is its capacity to operate according to a transparent and well-balanced budget, especially during periods of financial crisis. Here it is governed by the principle of prudence, so as to ensure that foreseeable costs can be covered by income. In this context, Switzerland can assure you of its active and continued support to the ITU. We are providing it with the optimum framework for cooperation here in the international Geneva. At the same time, we are keenly monitoring its present and future needs, so we are facilitating the productivity of delegates who come to participate in the Union's activities. A second condition, and one which is equally as important, relates to the people who lead the Union. Over the decades, competent, enthusiastic, and devoted men and women have always come and put the organization forward to support the ITU in the most diverse range of roles. The ITU status as a major platform for innovation was achieved thanks to this combination, a combination of the most brilliant talents from not only the public sector, but also the private sector, academia, and from civil society. A third and final prerequisite for success is the Union's widespread reputation, derived from a profile which was developed significantly over the last few years. Communications have become key to the age in which we all live. Thanks to numerous publications, media, technology demonstrations, and conferences, the ITU's image has spread worldwide in a very extensive and positive way. In an age characterized by liberalization, globalization, and convergence, the ITU stands as a symbol of quality in the communication sector. Ladies and gentlemen, we have good reason to be proud of the ITU's 150-year history. On behalf of Switzerland, I am glad of this opportunity to thank all of those who have helped to write its record on the annals of history. Their distinguished cooperation over all of these years is very appreciated. This vote of thanks goes out to every country on the planet that has participated in the ITU's adventure. It also goes to all those who have participated in bringing telecommunications to life, driving development, and continuously improving communications between people worldwide. Naturally, we are also glad of this opportunity to thank the leaders of the ITU, particularly its Secretary General and his team, together with all of the men and women employed by the ITU. The 150-year existence of the ITU has been a success for the telecommunications sector as a whole. The ITU has successful in launching this sector on a good trajectory and developing it with admirable continuity. Let us continue on this track, combining our strengths with those of the ITU. Let us continue to pursue the major projects still being drafted here in the International Geneva. You will always be able to rely on the active support of the Swiss government. Here is to many more years of success for the very first, the very oldest branch of the United Nations. I wish everybody therefore happy anniversary and thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leuthard, for those very inspiring words. As we said, we are celebrating, as you've heard from Ms. Leuthard and Mr. Zhao, 150 years of ITU today. So it's maybe time for a little bit of history. We'd like to look back at a century and a half of landmark inventions and innovations in communications. We've got a great film to show you here, and it's being premiered, it's being screened here at the ITU for the very first time.
The world is more connected than ever before, and the story of ITU is the story of connecting the world. In the 1830s, electricity powered a huge revolution. Soon, not only voltage, but also information transmitted over the wires. In 1839, the world's first commercial telegraph service opened in London. In 1844, Samuel Morse started a service in the United States. And soon after, the Morse code was standardized at the International Telegraphy Congress in Paris, later becoming an ITU standard. The telegraph spread like wildfire. Telegraph service began by linking Britain and France with a submarine cable, carrying over 9,000 messages in its first year. And the Reuters news agency began sending the latest news racing over the wires. As telegraph lines crossed national borders, new international agreements had to be forged. In 1865, 20 nations gathered in Paris to sign an international framework and formed the International Telegraph Union. ITU was born. The 17th of May is now observed annually as World Telecommunications and Information Society Day. The next step, transmitting speech over the lines. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell gained the US patent for the telephone.
Mr. Watson, come here.
And launched the first telephonic service 2 years later. New inventions like telephone exchanges transformed telecommunications, and within 10 years, some 100 million phone calls had been made in the 50 ITU member countries. ITU drew up the first international telephone regulations to facilitate telecommunications worldwide. More inventions were on the way. The radio. Practical systems were developed in the 1890s by Popov in Russia, Jagdish Chandra Bose in India, and by Marconi in Britain. In December 1906, Reginald Fessenden made the world's first audio broadcast to banana boats in the Atlantic with Christmas music and readings. The first radio regulations aimed at preventing radio interference were agreed at an international radio telegraph conference that same year. The Titanic disaster in 1912 highlighted the lack of 24-hour radio communication on ships, as well as the lack of interoperable standards. The International Radio Telegraph Conference in London agreed on a common wavelength for radio distress signals. The International Radio Telegraph Conference in 1927 created a radio consultative committee, similar to the committees on the telegraph and the telephone. Soon after, the conventions on telegraphy and radio telegraphy were merged, and a new name was adopted, the International Telecommunication Union, and ITU defined the term telecommunication for the first time. New frontiers in technology reached the stars as radio waves helped observe celestial objects. Radio astronomy and other space services became part of ITU's key responsibilities. With the onset of World War II, the role of telecommunications was affirmed as critical to war strategy. Radio navigation and direction finding developed into radar, providing accurate air navigation and detection of enemy aircraft. Shortwave broadcasts shored up the propaganda war. Following the war, ITU helped restore the immense damage that had been caused to telecommunications infrastructure, working alongside the newly created United Nations. In 1947, ITU became a specialized United Nations agency for telecommunications, and in 1948 moved its headquarters from Bern to Geneva, the hub of international organizations in Europe. In 1956, the International Telegraph and Telephone Consultative Committee, CCITT, was formed, forerunner of ITU's standardization sector, to develop standards related to the telegraph and telephone. As the space race heated up, sending the first humans into space, satellite communication services began, with the first phone call from space. In 1964, the first geostationary satellite relayed live pictures of the Tokyo Olympic Games. Geostationary satellites are now the mainstay of telecommunications worldwide, and ITU allocates orbital slots and radio frequency spectrum to ensure reliable, interference-free transmission for meteorology, aeronautics, and broadcasting. Against the background of new innovations and the coming internet revolution, ITU provided a networking platform to explore new directions in information and communication technologies. In 1971, ITU Telecom World opened its doors as an industry showcase and high-level forum. Even as ICTs grew exponentially, ITU identified a missing link, the gap in access between countries, communities, and people. Bridging the digital divide and making telecommunications universally accessible became a top priority for ITU. ITU had a pivotal role in forging the digital revolution. New technologies were spawned: high-definition TV, JPEG, digital telephones, fiber optic networks. Recognition came from Hollywood in 3 Emmy Awards for HD TV and loudness metering and broadcast audio, and a Primetime Award for ITU-T H.264 video coding for online streaming on mobile devices. The Internet revolution transformed the world. Tim Berners-Lee, working at CERN, created the World Wide Web and made it freely available. The rest is history. ITU developed the technical standards that allow the Internet to run effectively on the telecommunication platform. The ITU-T H.323 standard made it possible for voice, video, and data to converge, transforming the world of telecommunications. In 1992, ITU's federal structure was reinforced as ITU-D became the 3rd pillar of the Union, along with radio communication, ITU-R, and telecommunication standardization, ITU-T. Telecommunication development received a boost worldwide, especially in developing countries. Today, mobile devices connect billions around the globe. In 1992, ITU allocated radio spectrum dedicated to mobile communications. IMT 2000, or 3G became the global standard. The next step, IMT Advanced, was announced in 2012, and work is underway on developing IMT 2020, setting the stage for 5G technologies. In 2003, the first ever international gathering to discuss the potential of ICTs took place in Geneva, the World Summit on the Information Society, one of the largest gatherings of the United Nations, with over 19,000 participants, including nearly 50 heads of government. The second phase of the summit concluded in Tunis 2 years later with the Geneva Action Plan and Tunis Agenda, providing a roadmap to achieve universal accessibility and bridge the digital divide. The WSIS Forum is held annually to monitor progress. Focused on saving lives, the Tampere Convention facilitated rapid response and more effective assistance in the aftermath of natural disasters. As climate change wreaks havoc around the world with an increase in the intensity and frequency of natural disasters, ICTs provide smart solutions to mitigate those effects. ITU is working on green standards aimed at sustainable development and allocates radio frequency spectrum for Earth monitoring satellites and oceanographic radars. In an increasingly networked society, strengthening cybersecurity has become a priority, and ITU standards make networks more resilient and resistant to attacks. ITU's global cybersecurity agenda addresses the global response to cyber attacks. ITU's Child Online Protection Initiative aims to ensure a safe online experience for young people everywhere. Fast, high-capacity connections to the internet are vital in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and ITU promotes the rollout of broadband to connect the world. Digital inclusion is an essential part of ITU's mission. This means ensuring everyone has access to ICTs, especially people with disabilities. And the future? In 2015, as ITU celebrates its 150th anniversary, a new team led by Secretary General Hulin Zhao is at the helm, enunciating the vision of ITU's membership with a common action plan, strengthening ITU as the United Nations Specialized Agency for ICTs. ITU provides a high-tech park platform for small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, and young entrepreneurs, recognizing that even tiny startups in the remotest corners of the world can come up with the next big thing in ICT. ITU steps up the global effort to bridge the digital divide, connecting people who still do not have access to modern communication tools, and reaches out to marginalized communities and remote settlements, eliminating the stumbling blocks to socioeconomic growth, improving education, healthcare, and environmental sustainability. By connecting the world to communications, ITU helps make our world safer, more peaceful and progressive, and contributes to achieving a sustainable future for all.
Well, what an amazingly long way we've come in 150 years. In fact, I was thinking when watching that video, even in my own lifetime, some kind of fundamental, maybe not so important changes, but I was thinking when I was at high school, we had, like most British families, we had one phone in our house. Anybody who wanted to call me, everybody in my family knew about it. And now I think my two teenage sons, they're up in their rooms, I don't know. Do they have that freedom, that privacy of their mobile phones? None of that kind of little teenage luxuries would have been possible without some very brilliant brains. We saw some of them honored in that video, but we also want to honor some of them here today, not just for the kind of technology that my sons comfortable in Switzerland might like to have, but people who have brought the world literally to our fingertips, who've helped make new telecommunication acceptable across across the world have helped develop standards and applied those standards globally. So what we're going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is honour our ITU 150-year anniversary laureates. We have awards for 5 of them. I think you are ready, laureates. The first one I'd like to call up to the stage is Martin Cooper. Martin Cooper is a pioneer in the wireless communications industry. He's an inventor, an entrepreneur, and I'm told a futurist. Now, he conceived the first portable cellular phone, mobile phone, to you and me in 1973, knowing then that people needed the freedom that comes from any time, anywhere telephony. Congratulations to you, Mr. Cooper. Our second laureate, Robert E. Kahn. If you'd like to come up to the stage, Mr. Kahn. Hands together for Mr. Kahn. Bob Kahn played a pioneering role in the development of the internet. He laid the foundations for something we heard about in that video there. It's known as the TCP IP protocol architecture, for novices to IT jargon like me, standard operating feature of the internet. Still very significant today, Mr. Kahn, thank you. And our third laureate, Mark Krivochev. Mr. Krivochev is best known for his pioneering work on a global digital standard for television, and ITU's radio communications sector and the Emmy Award for that, and for HD TV standards, which have made it possible for us to receive the best quality sound and picture in our homes. Congratulations to you, Mr. Krivochev. And fourth on our list, Ken Sakamura. He designed the Tron open computer system architecture. It's used for engine control in cars, mobile phones, digital cameras, and much, much more. And in fact, they are among the most popular operating systems for embedded computers around the world. Congratulations to Sakamura. And last, but of course not least, Thomas Wiegand. Now, Mr. Wiegand has been instrumental in setting the standards for today's video. Not alone, though. He's accepting this award on behalf of a group. Over the last 15 years, they, working with ITO's video coding experts, have played a key role developing that famous ITU TH.264 AVC video coding standard. Even I've heard of it because I work in TV, but I'm not quite sure what it is. Congratulations to you. Thank you to all of our laureates. We have one more. can't be with us, but we want to hear from him, and that is, we've got a special award for the unique Mr. Bill Gates. We all know him, of course, as the co-founder of Microsoft. He's also co-chair, some of you may know, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He and Melinda work together to expand opportunity for the world's most disadvantaged people. So although we can't be here, it's a great privilege to hear from him. Let's listen to what Bill Gates has to say.
I'm honored that the International Telecommunications Union has chosen me for this prestigious award. Well, unfortunately, I'm not able to join you in person for the 150th anniversary celebration. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about how your work contributes to a breakthrough that will improve the lives of the world's poorest over the next 15 years and beyond. That breakthrough, which Melinda and I highlighted in our annual foundation letter this year, is the use of digital banking to give the poor more control of their assets and help them transform their lives. Historically, people at the lowest income levels have had to make difficult choices about how to use their limited financial resources. That's partly because they don't have access to banks that can help them use those resources effectively. As mobile digital technologies spread to even the poorest and most remote regions of the world, we have an opportunity to reach this underserved population and bring it into the global economy with expanded access to savings accounts, lines of credit, and other financial services. For their part, financial service providers can profit from serving these customers because the marginal cost of processing digital transactions is near zero. In other words, these technologies can make the expansion of financial access a winning proposition for everyone. Now, for the world to seize this opportunity, we need the innovation and expertise of the global telecommunications industry. And that's where the ITU can play a central role. By encouraging greater technical standardization in the digital financial services sector, by improving the quality, reliability, and security of services in low-income countries, by providing a better coordination between telecommunications authorities and financial service regulators, and by advocating simpler, more intuitive mobile technologies to ensure wider use by individuals who may be illiterate or unfamiliar with digital systems. For 150 years, the ITU has helped build an ever more connected global economy. By making it possible for the poor to join that economy, you're adding to the proud legacy of the organization. Thank you very much for this great honor, and congratulations on your 150th anniversary.
Well, thanks to Bill Gates for those best wishes and those inspiring words. Now, I'm sure you're all pleased to see that our laureates are still here with us, and that we're going to get to hear a little more from them. I've got one or two questions. We're going to have a little question and answer session here, looking back at some of the hard work you've all been responsible for. And first, to Martin Cooper, the mobile phone. Yeah, when you kind of thought about it, way back in the 70s, did you think it would eventually end up in just about everybody's pocket?
Well, of course. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Microphone.
I'm not sure that I understand these modern technologies. No, we knew in 1973 that someday everyone would be able to speak from a personal telephone. Of course, we couldn't have perceived then, because there was no internet in 1973, there were no digital cameras, there were no personal computers. I hate to admit all these things, because then you know really how old I am. So we had a joke then that said that someday, when you were born, you would be assigned a telephone number. If you didn't answer the phone, you had died. So yes, we did think it was going to be pervasive, but we never could have anticipated the modern cell phone.
But that's something I'd also like to bring Bob Kahn in on, because as you said, you knew kind of being able to be mobile and speak to people, not have to sit at your desk or sit at home waiting for the phone to ring, that was going to appeal. But the explosion of, I mean, now we walk around with smartphones. They're mini computers. I don't have a camera anymore. I've got a perfectly good one on my iPhone. When I go on holiday, I don't take my laptop. Everything I can do from my phone. Mr. Kahn, is the speed of that development, has that taken you by surprise?
Well,
It's good.
hello?
It's
Can you hear
good.
me? Okay, well, I think what's happened with regard to the internet itself, which is really what I think you're referring to, has really been a function of what the private sector has done, the kind of support that governments have given to it, and it's changed over time. It started out as a research experiment to see if we could make computers talk to each other, what would they do. It was an opportunity for people to innovate, to try out ideas. It was kind of a petri dish within the research community. And it grew little by little. More and more people joined. Some of the industrial research organizations joined. We made a conscious effort from day one to start it out internationally, which, since it was supported within the United States Department of Defense, we had to get clearance to do that, which we did. And as it's kind of grown and more capabilities have been shown by industry and others, the speed of it has actually accelerated. So in some ways it's a surprise, because we couldn't ever predicted everything that happened afterwards on day one. But you know, as you're in an ever accelerating trend, you know, the fact that this is happening becomes sort of de rigueur. It's what you sort of expect, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it accelerate even more going forward.
That's where I want to bring Mr. Sakamura in. Where are we going now? How can we develop more? I'm assuming we can. What do you see coming up?
The name Tron stand for the real-time operating system nucleus. My Tron project was started in 1984. There are many interesting industry sectors to use microcomputer for consumer appliances and automobiles. The project adopted open and free approach. The technical specification and the source code were made available to the public for free. Fast forward 30 years, the operating system from Tron project now has about 60% market share in the high-end embedded computer appliances in Japan. And also, we don't have a hard data of the adoption rate in the world is high. The reason for high adoption rate is the open and free approach, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings me on to the future of that thing we always used to have sitting in the corner of our room. It's TV, which now also comes with us. Mr. Krivochev, could you talk to me, and I believe you're going to speak in Russian, so don't forget we have the simultaneous interpretation. Give us a little bit your thoughts on the future of television.
Буду говорить по-русски. И хотел бы все-таки вначале сказать несколько слов о вкладе юбиляра вообще в развитии телевизионного вещания в мире. Отлично понимаю, что телевизионное вещание – это небольшая доля большой деятельности МСЭ, но эта доля очень значима, потому что телевидение было, есть и будет в числе доминирующих компонент информатизации населения. И в связи с этим хотел сказать, как свидетель, как участник, что не все, может быть, знают о том, что именно МСЭ в конце 40-х годов прошлого столетия впервые стал инициатором международной стандартизации телевизионного вещания, без чего вообще невозможно было бы его развитие. В 1972 году опять именно МСЭ стал инициатором международной стандартизации цифрового телевидения и одновременно в соответствии с историческим предложением Японии было начато изучение телевидения высокой четкости. Поэтому наш юбиляр является, в отличие от многих других служб, пионером и внесшим выдающийся вклад в развитие телевизионного вещания во всем мире. Теперь, что касается вклада в телевизионное вещание, я хотел бы отметить, что я далек от претензий, что все сделала МСЭ, но роль МСЭ состоит в том, что она дала стартовые рекомендации для развития телевизионного вещания. Должен сказать, что разработка единых рекомендаций по телевидению относится к категории сложнейших технологий, которые есть в МСЭ, поскольку рекомендации на уровне стандартов по телевизионному вещанию, они согласуются с десятками организаций, должны отражать, раз они единые, интересы всех стран, и поэтому сейчас назову только 3 из 150 рекомендаций, которые были разработаны, чтобы было ясно, в чем вклад МСЭ. Первое. Первая рекомендация по цифровому телевидению. Рекомендация 601. Это единые во всем мире цифровые студии. Выкинули NTSC и PAL-SECAM, и все студии на сегодняшний день по рекомендации МСЭ унифицированы, все цифровые, и в мире создан первый участок телевизионного тракта единые цифровые студии по решениям МСЭ. Второе. Единая рекомендация по телевидению высокой четкости. Нетрудно понять, что подход стран к этим технологиям был разный, и поэтому добиться согласования было непросто. Но в 1999 году принята единая как стандарт рекомендация по телевидению высокой четкости, и первыми внедрили эти рекомендации такие страны, как Япония и Соединенные Штаты Америки, которые вещают телевидение высокой четкости по единой рекомендации МСЭ. А сейчас к этому присоединяются и многие другие страны. Далее. Телевидение сверхвысокой четкости, ультравысокой четкости. Опять первая рекомендация дала МСЭ, а сейчас десятки организаций уже думают насчет кодирования, внедрения и так далее. Таким образом, в этом коротком сообщении я только мог показать, что их всего 150, а вот 3 в виде примера показывают, что МСЭ решил судьбу телевизионного вещания и надолго. Мне показалось, может, я не точно слышал, вы спросили меня, а какой я вклад вносил в это дело. Ну, это щепетильное дело, самому говорить о вкладе. Но я постараюсь все-таки ответить по таким статистическим и объективным данным. Значит, я связан с деятельностью МСЭ 67 лет. И должен сказать, что с самого начала, еще работая на телевизионном центре, мне повезло познакомиться со многими специалистами, поскольку в СССР был первый комплекс оборудования на 625 строк. Первый. И приезжали с ним знакомиться специалисты всех стран, у которых частота сети 50 Гц. В Америке в это время был телецентр в Нью-Йорке, но там частота сети 60 Гц. А страны, у которых 50 Гц, все приезжали и могли с этим ознакомиться еще до создания исследовательской комиссии. Теперь какие результаты конкретные можно назвать. Вот в начале изучения цифрового телевизионного вещания удалось предложить, и она была принята, глобальный подход к разработке телевизионных систем. Я об этом почему говорю? Потому что глобальный подход, он позволяет все те конфликты, которые бывают, если вовремя все не согласовать, он в комплексе рассматривает модель телевизионного тракта и уже на первом этапе гармонизирует интересы множества участников, которые есть. Теперь я хотел бы сказать, если речь идет о вкладе, во-первых, я считаю, что вклад в телевидение МСЭ – это коллективный вклад ведущих специалистов многих стран. Хотя я и был 30 лет и председателем, и 15 лет почетным председателем, ничего нельзя было бы достичь, если не было бы поддержки, опыта и знаний ведущих специалистов многих стран. Поэтому я эту высокую честь и награды рассматриваю как коллективный труд и с огромной благодарностью разделяю его со всеми участниками. Спасибо.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krivochev. 67 years working in telecommunications. I take my hat off to you, sir. Thomas Wiegand, you heard what Mark Krivochev had to say. A lot focused on television and on standards. Now, of course, you and your team have developed this codec, which won an Emmy Award. Could you explain to us, and I think I might be one of them, why this kind of standard is so important?
So my grandmother, who was actually at the age of Mr. Krivochev, which is, she asked me once what I'm doing. And I said, well, you know, I have the numbers in the computer, I do some computations, and they become different numbers in the computer. And then I explained to her what's really happening, that you can actually compress video signals so that they actually are getting transmitted. Now, this is alone something you can do, and it has been done before, more or less successful. However, when H.264, and it was a joint effort with the ISO, it also has MPEG AVC as a name in it, became started, it was at the right time. Flat panel TVs came into the game, and mobile phones came into the game, and we started with a very small number. If you go back to the history of ITU video codecs, and Sakai Okubo was one of the people there, he started H.261, which was 25 pages. And after that, Gary Sullivan, he's in the room. Hello, Gary. Took over, and we developed further, H.262, H.263, and we increased the number of pages. So now H.264 was 264 pages, funny enough. And H.265 now was about 600 pages. So if you look at the amount of work that goes into these specifications, it's amazing. We had a meeting here in Geneva in 2011 with about 400 people, and we had 1,000 contributions to that one meeting. And so we hope that H.264, it's about half the bits on the internet, 3 billion devices. At once was just a document on the laptop and nothing else. That our new baby, H.265 and MPEG HEVC, will be as successful. And as we've almost done with it, you may want to guess what we are working on now. What do you think? H.266. And
I was way ahead of you.
And to second on something that Bob has said, I think we are just at the beginning of what digitization will do in this world. We have just been dealing with changing the way people communicate with each other. The rest of our life hasn't really changed. The way we travel, the industry, there are some changes, but not that significant. What's going to happen next as the second wave of digitization, as I would call it, is that everything else gets changed. And we will see in the next 20, 30 years so dramatic changes around us when we don't need traffic lights anymore because cars are driving automatically and coordinate via telecommunication. Or when we increase productivity by factors 2 or 3. So that will all change our lives so significantly that I think we just started this journey.
Quite an amazing journey it is too. We've got a few, well not too many, but maybe 5 more minutes of this discussion. I'm told I can kind of ask a question myself, so I do have one. We're a part of this whole 150th anniversary is to talk about accessibility, and we are going to talk about sustainable development and accessibility later on in one of our other panels. But you were talking about your grandmother. And I'm looking at the speed of the development and wondering what the industry is doing to make sure that all this new technology is still accessible to people like my grandmother, who most of her life didn't even have a phone in her house. And I will say from experience, even my parents, some of the stuff they say, oh, I just can't keep up with this anymore. It's changing too fast. Can I ask you first, Martin? Do you have a view on that? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is one of the most serious problems we have, is that sometimes we engineers forget that it is human beings that are going to be using our tools. And we create tools that make the human being a slave to the tool, and that's just wrong. In the future, our technology has to be invisible. These tools should be there to help us, but we should not even know that they're there. And let me tell you, the things that are going to happen in the future, specifically with the combination of the mobile phone and what we call the internet, will make what we do now look like toys. We are talking about connecting human beings to measuring human beings, connecting that data to huge computers, anticipating diseases before they become diseases. We are talking about educational systems that draw children into their games, that challenge them and change the whole role of what schools do. We're talking about forms of collaboration that make the process of innovating much, much more efficient. So over the next 20 years, we can, number one, look for the possibility of all disease being eliminated. Does that sound incredible to you? But that is a possibility because all diseases are actionably preventable. So instead of trying to cure disease, our healthcare systems are going to be preventing disease. We are going to be stressing the minds of our children, and their brains are going to be bigger than ours. We are developing a more intelligent society, and the only satisfaction we have about our children being smarter than ours is that their children are going to be smarter than they are. But more important, most important, is that we are improving human productivity to the extent that there is a possibility that we can solve the biggest problem of all, and that is poverty. And only one way to solve that problem, the problem of the haves and the have-nots, and that is to increase productivity, make the pie bigger, so there is the possibility that no one will want.
Who else would like to come in on that? I mean, bear in mind, my original question was, we have a certainly in Europe, in the developed world, we have an aging society. How do we take that generation with us in this development which is changing so rapidly? I see your incredibly utopian but real, I'm sure, vision of the future, but I'm a little bit interested in now. How do we take the older generation with us when the technology is changing so fast? They have to get used to a new TV control every other week. That's one of my questions.
Can I keep going?
Well, we don't have that much time. Does anybody else want to come in on that?
Just let me make one quick comment. one of the most important things in getting people accommodated to new technology is to recognize that all people are not the same. What we are trying to do now is make universal devices that do all things for all people. There's only one problem. They don't do any of those things optimally. I think we are going to have, in the future, more customization of technology. Technologies that are adapted to the people and recognize the fact that people are different from each other, and we'll have different kinds of cell phones that adapt themselves to ourselves. Every cell phone, every mobile phone will be different from every other one, and the same is true with every one of our technological devices. They have to be adapted to us. We have to be, the tools have to be our slaves and not the reverse.
Bokan.
So I'm not so much worried about that issue because people tend to do what's comfortable for them. So if somebody doesn't keep up with the technology, I don't have a problem with that unless it's causing them a problem. Their health degrades as a result. They can't get certain functions in society that they need as a result, in which case we've got to worry about it. But if somebody chooses not to go with the technology, the early adopters are almost always the young kids. And so it will happen in society over time. I wanted to make one comment about the difference between what a non-technological user will do with technology versus what a technologist would see in trying to create it. So I come at this more from the technology side, but I'm very aware of and interested in the public policy aspects of it as well. So that's a debate that's going to happen in societies and governments all over the world for as far in the future as you can imagine. Every technology has its pluses and minuses. They can be used for ill, they can be used for good, and to the extent that there is a balance here between the two, it's societal laws, mores, regulations that tend to shift the balance one way or another. I wanted to make one comment about what Marty said earlier about eliminating all disease. I don't actually agree with that, Marty. What I think we might do is deal with the existing diseases, and people might live longer, but then all we'll do is find that there are other diseases that show up that maybe we're not experiencing now because we don't live long enough. So I think there's going to be a challenge along that dimension, but the one thing that I think we should focus on that we're not now focusing on is the importance of finding a way to preserve information over the long haul, whether it's governmental information, corporate information, personal information, health records, so we could deal with the evolution of disease, looking back over many, many years, and finding a way for all of these incredible systems that people are inventing, and lots of people are inventing them and will continue, to make sure that they have the ability to work together with each other. I mean, today we're giving a lot less attention to that than I think we should, and I think some of the solutions to that are already in front of us. There are standards out of the ITU that can be helpful. There are ideas that have been pursued by a variety of groups. We're working on one ourselves. But I think the more we focus on the need for long-term interoperability and the ability to access information over the long term, the more we'll serve the needs of people everywhere.
Thank you. We're coming almost to the end of this session. Do any of our other panelists want to come in briefly on that? Mr. Griffiths. Yes.
Благодарю вас. Действительно, часто можно слышать, а что ждет в будущем телевидение? Вы знаете, в связи с чем задаются эти вопросы. Я хотел бы сказать, что сейчас уже на базе именно глобального подхода разрабатывается стратегия дальнейшего развития телевизионного вещания, которая предполагает гармонизировать, я подчеркиваю, именно гармонизировать множество средств подачи телевизионных программ, поскольку страны весьма разнообразны, регионы также отличаются друг от друга, и твердо можно сказать, что никогда одного единого решения, единого мирового, не будет. Будет набор решений, отражающих специфику стран земного шара. И по размерам, и по климатическим условиям, и по экономическим и так далее. Это общий подход. А теперь какие два символа? Первое – это многоэкранность телевизионного вещания. Слово «многоэкранность телевизионного вещания» учитывает персональные интересы любого зрителя и слушателя. Кто смотрит у телевизора, кто на компьютере, кто на смартфоне, на мобильном телефоне и так далее. То есть многоэкранность – это путь к реальному удовлетворению интересов, которые заметно различаются. А каков общий девиз? Общий девиз – телевизионное вещание для всех и телевизионное вещание для каждого. Таким путем гармонично будут решены проблемы, которые возникают в связи с тем, что прогресс технологий, он опережает разработчиков стратегии вещания, разработчиков программ. Ну, они догонят. А теперь технологические возможности. Принятие телевидения ультравысокой четкости, в котором детальность изображения будет в 16 раз выше, чем телевидение высокой четкости. И, конечно, это в первую очередь скажется на больших экранах, на стадионах и в других местах, где стоят экраны, и в домашних условиях, у кого есть телевизионная стена. И хотел бы дать такую техническую деталь. Дело в том, что появляющиеся дроны, то есть беспилотные летающие аппараты, должны быть оборудованы камерами ультравысокой четкости, с широким взглядом с высоты, вот начиная от травы, кончая 100 метрами, когда зритель сможет рассмотреть в деталях все передаваемое изображение. И таким путем мы коренным образом улучшим показ спорта, показ многих событий, и опять Международный союз электросвязи впереди. Вот он выдвинул эту концепцию использования беспилотных аппаратов для внестудийного телевизионного вещания, и даже в повестке дня конференции 2015 года уже есть пункт по обеспечению частотам таких систем. То есть на месте не стоит. И поскольку, очевидно, я выступаю последний раз, я два слова скажу. Я хочу пожелать всем вам счастья и успехов и закончу очень мудрой китайской пословицей. Ничего нет дальше, чем вчера, и ничего нет ближе, чем завтра. Поэтому я призываю всех вас уже с завтрашнего дня включиться в дальнейший прогресс МСЭ. Спасибо.
Okay. Very nice words of wisdom there from you, sir. I'm going to get in trouble from my ITU organisers if we go on too long. Could I just ask Mr. Sakamura and Mr. Vigan, just very briefly, because we've heard visions of the future from the elimination of all disease to high-definition drones. Could I give you, Mr. Vigan, and then Mr. Sakamura, just a very brief vision of what you see as the next big thing?
I mentioned that the communication between more sensors and machines is in the networking side one big step forward that will change things in many ways, and it has to be managed to be a change for the goods for everybody, because it has, as Bob said, everything is ambivalent, so it can be going this way or that way. When it comes to people, I think we will see a big change for our young people with regards to their culture skills. About 700 years ago, King Karl was proud of not being able to read. He said, I don't need to read. I have people reading things to me. So reading became a culture skill, a necessary culture skill. I think now we are at this point where people programming and using digital technology is becoming a cultural skill that young people are learning, should be learning as they learn reading in school. And we are at this stage. And so the impact on society will be so dramatic, and it's not only going to be smartphones, they're everywhere, but this is just a tiny little thing. It's going to be more and more everywhere, and what the ITU needs to do is to also help with managing this change so that it will be for the good of society and not making things worse. And that's very important.
Mr. Sakamura, a final word to you.
I have been doing research on ubiquitous computing as a future target of embedded systems since the start of Tron project in 1984. Having a small computer inside many objects around us and having all them exchange information so that they and other computer systems can act in a coordinated manner to offer an advanced service. It is the essence of the ubiquitous computing or the IoT. So it is up to the people to make the best use of such environment and offer better advanced services. That said, I think here and advanced services for medical care and health care, which will be important for the aging society in the industrialized world, or other services that improve the quality of living for individuals, and other service that improves the quality of living in urban areas in normal times and during and after natural disaster can be created. In a sense, our ubiquitous computing environment will make the threshold of offering such advanced services lower because the infrastructure of sensor networks, actuator, everywhere will means that a creative designer can use these to develop application more quickly. So we will see more interesting services being created in our short time span. We are trying to come up with interesting services today in Japan and elsewhere. It is up to imagination people who uses our ubiquitous computing infrastructure to come up with good services in the future, and I can't predict what wonderful service will be created in the next 30 years.
Thank you very much. Well, I think you'll all agree, inspiring to hear from our laureates there. I apologize, I kept you up here a little bit longer than you're supposed to be, but I think it really was very interesting for us, combine a bit of visions of the future and some debate with the with the ceremonial side. So if you could just put your hands together for our laureates. Okay. Now, moving on. Yes. Going to move to our don't worry, it's just the microphone. Thanks. So you had some visions of the future there. Now we're coming back to the present day. Geneva is not the only part of the world celebrating this 150th anniversary. We're going to hear from various parts of the world who have strong connections historically with the ITU. Now, you heard earlier on that the International Telegraph Convention was signed in Paris, 17th of May, 1865. So we're going to have a look now at some celebrations that have been taking place in Paris to mark the anniversary.
Pas facile de résumer 150 ans d'histoire de l'Union internationale des télécommunications en 140 signes, mais je dirais que l'UIT, c'est le multilatéralisme au service d'un monde connecté, un monde innovant et un monde ouvert à tous. L'enjeu, il est grand aujourd'hui que les produits et services innovants se mettent au service de tous.
Notre mission, c'était de connecter tout le monde, dans le monde entier. Mais il y a encore beaucoup de choses à faire parce que les gens ne sont pas encore connectés, la technologie n'est pas encore avancée. Donc il y a pas mal de choses à faire. Donc il faut mobiliser tout le monde.
Aujourd'hui, en 2015, le monde de l'UIT sait qu'il peut compter sur les opérateurs de satellites pour gérer avec sagacité les positions orbitales et pour servir un nombre toujours croissant d'hommes et de femmes sur tous les continents.
And well, of course, 150 years ago, it took various nations to join in, sign that convention. We have the founding member states of the ITU with us today. Now, of course, borders have changed, so some of the names might not be quite the same. We have 16 nations representing the founding member states. We'd like to honor them today. If we could start, please, I'm going to read you out one by one. Austria, if you could come up to the stage. Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Russian Federation, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, of course, and finally Turkey. Thank you all to our founding member states. Really good to see you all here. And we move a little bit fast forward from 1865 to another significant date in ITU history. That's 1932. ITU got a new name. The International Telegraph Union, telegraphs, what are they, became the International Telecommunication Union to reflect the new global era of communications. And Madrid was the venue for that occasion. Madrid's been celebrating too. Let's have a look at how they've been marking the day.
La tecnología debe ayudar a construir una economía no solo más competitiva y productiva, sino también más justa. Una economía que genere mayores oportunidades para el empleo, para la formación, para el acceso a los servicios públicos.
La hiperconectividad, el Big Data, el Internet de las cosas, la inteligencia artificial o la impresión en 3D no solo son nuevas realidades, no solo son nuevas herramientas e instrumentos que condicionan, que mejoran, que empujan cualquier proceso de producción de bienes y servicios, sino que además son realidades que han venido para quedarse.
España es hoy uno de los principales contribuyentes a la sociedad de la información y uno de los principales miembros de la OIT. Gracias por este compromiso.
Pongamos el conocimiento al servicio de las personas. Asumamos el reto de conectar el mundo y hagámoslo entre todos, con diálogo y consenso, porque de esa manera haremos de él un lugar mejor para futuras generaciones.
Well, you remember we started this afternoon, we talked about the importance of the 193 member states of the United Nations in ITU, but we also mentioned the fact that the ITU could not fulfill its role, of course, without industry. Now, technology has evolved, as we've been hearing, incredibly fast over the last decades, but one thing has remained constant, that is that governments and industry have worked together, they need to work together, and they have. So we want to also honour our industry partners. Today, over 700 ICT companies take part in the work of the ITU. One of them, since 1871, not here today, but it's important to mention, that's Cable and Wireless. We'd like to recognise some of the leading industries in the ICT sector who've worked so closely with ITU over the years. I've got a few names and dates to read out here. Going to start 1925, Telecom Italia. Okay. Then 1929, Excelis. Also 1929, Telefonica. 1952, NHK Japan. 1953, KDDI Corporation. Again, 1953, Nippon Telegraph and Telephone. 1954, Alcatel-Lucent. 1960, Ericsson. 1964, Roden Schwartz. 1969, British Telecommunications, BT. 1985, Canon. Again, 1985, Fujitsu Limited. Still something going on in 1985, Mitsubishi. 1986, Cisco Systems. And a jump back in time, 1931, Sirti. Of course, we don't expect our industry leaders just to come up for a quick handshake. We want them to talk to us too. I'd like to invite Mr. Stefano Lorenzi from Sirti. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great honor to stay here and say a few words in behalf of ICT colleagues of other ICT companies. I just wanted to touch on a couple of benefits that ITU activities, I believe, because I have experienced those myself, are bringing us. The first is related to the high-speed transformation that we go through. It happened to me to have to plan for major network changes or to introduce new technologies, and that is happening more and more in every country, particularly in emerging countries. And it is very important, very reassuring for people who have to take critical decisions to know that they can count on global standards from such a trusted organization like ITU. That's very important. Secondly, the other major benefit, there are many others, of course, but the other one I have experienced again myself in a different role in my career, is about economy of scale, economy of scope, that particularly industry, technology companies, manufacturing companies that can face, they have to face major investments in new technologies and developments, having global standards again and global products that they can deploy on worldwide is tremendous advantage versus what we had decades ago, where each country or each continent had different type of products. This leverage economy of scale, optimize utilization of resources that can be free up to foster, the pace of innovation. And more personally, I'm the leader of one of the largest integration and engineering company in Italy who have been serving ITU for more than 80 years. And I have myself, at the beginning of my career, worked on standardization here, with some of you, work on standardizing fiber optic networks. I have great memories of those times. I have benefited a lot out of that. Then life brought me to do different things. I'm now a CEO. I'm doing other things, you know, trying to please shareholders and banks. But still, my company has been tremendously benefiting from contributing to ITU. We have become, as an integration company, much more relevant on our international activities. And I want to thank the ITU and the General Secretary and all of you, indeed, for what you're doing, for what you will be continuing to do. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Stefano Lorenzi of Sirti. Now, we've had a series of visits to different parts of the world, see how they're marking the 150th anniversary. Time for another one now. We can take a trip to the United States.
ITU!
Happy birthday, ITU!
Hey, ITU. Happy birthday. Happy 150th.
Happy birthday, ITU!
The ITU has been so important for the United States and for the innovations that we have created in this country and that we share with the whole planet.
As to the ITU in general, my experience with all of you and with the ITU has been extraordinary. It's been a true learning experience, an enjoyable one.
Happy 150th birthday, ITU!
Well, it's the moment you've been waiting for. You'd be glad to know they don't only have cake across the pond in the United States. It's a birthday celebration. We've got cake too, and you've been very patient, so I can let you know the cake is waiting for you on the lower level next to the main entrance. But I also want to let you know that while you're eating it, we've got some very interesting exhibits you can take a look at down there. We asked some young innovators to look at novel ICT solutions to some of the big challenges of our time. So go eat, enjoy. You can use the ITU 150 app. You can talk to amateur radio experts. You can see what's on our Twitter wall. You can even have the ultimate selfie souvenir, if you want to. There's a special birthday photo booth. And we'll start back here just after 4 o'clock. Thanks for your interest so far.